wanted to go ahead and share Sidney's birth story with you guys. He actually just had his 2-month checkup at the pediatrician today, and I thought I better go ahead and make this video now before I forget all the details of what happened. Hey, you're 2 months old. Yeah, you're a big guy. So I want to start out with the fact that we did have labor induced, and I'll go ahead and make another video about why we decided to go ahead with an induction. I was diagnosed with hypertension, which is high blood pressure in pregnancy. And again, I'll go ahead and make another video all about that. But the 3 different ways to induce labor, one is a drug called Cervidil, another is called Cytotec, and the last way is using a balloon catheter, or what's called a Foley bulb. Both of the pharmaceutical drugs are inserted vaginally, and they did have side effects that we weren't very comfortable with. One drug actually has a lot of scary effects on mama and baby, we felt, and then the other one actually is not even FDA approved to be used in pregnant moms. So for us and for our family, we decided to go ahead and go with the balloon catheter, the Foley bulb, which basically is a balloon that's inserted into your cervix and inflated over a period of 6 hours to manually dilate your cervix. So we decided to go in and start with that one. They say that it can dilate you after the 6 hours to between 4 and 6 centimeters. Since I came in already at 4 centimeters, we're pretty good. We knew that most women who get induced with the Foley bulb end up having to use Pitocin. So we knew we'd have to use that, or we knew most likely we'd have to use that. But we felt for our family that the side effects of using the Pitocin to us were something we were more comfortable with than the side effects of using the Cervidil or the Cytotec. So that's why we decided to go with the Foley bulb and, hey buddy, the Foley bulb and the Pitocin. We knew that our midwife had a 2-day on-call period that she would be at the hospital for our birth, and we wanted to try and have her there for our delivery. So we decided to go in at midnight on August 7th and start the induction process. Actually, we went in at midnight and they didn't insert the balloon catheter until about 3 in the morning, I want to say. So basically from midnight to 3 in the morning, we just did paperwork. We went to the cafeteria and got some food and unpacked our room, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, at 3 o'clock in the morning, they put in the balloon catheter. Let me just say that that was probably one of the most uncomfortable parts of the whole labor and delivery, was having the balloon catheter put in, and the whole process of having it. So came in at 4 centimeters. All the nurses were like, wow, you're already at 4 centimeters. That's amazing. They put the balloon catheter in. Yeah, that was super uncomfortable. Basically, every time I had a pressure wave or a contraction, it was extremely uncomfortable, as you can imagine, because there's something that's stuck up inside my cervix. They keep the balloon catheter in for 6 hours. And then what their hope is that you dilate to between 4 to 6 centimeters, which I started at 4, and it will just go ahead and fall out by itself. So I had the Foley bulb or the balloon catheter in for 6 hours. At 9 o'clock the next morning, it was out. And at that point, I was dilated just over 5 centimeters about. So at that point, we knew, okay, the contractions still aren't super intense. So we're gonna have to augment with some Pitocin. And they basically up you 1 milliunit per hour. So they're coming in and they're evaluating you, making sure that the contractions aren't too close together or too intense. They're kind of looking for this like perfect mix and this perfect level of contractions with the Pitocin. Towards the end of the day, they checked me and I was at 5.5 centimeters dilated. By the following morning, I was at 6 centimeters dilated. At that point, you know, we knew, okay, things are progressing, but they're progressing very slowly, and my waters still hadn't broken. All throughout the night, even though I was having contractions, it wasn't super intense. You know, we had the Olympics on, I was eating popsicles, I was walking the halls. You know, I wasn't super uncomfortable to the point where I had to like stop and catch my breath during contractions, which I was having to do when I had the balloon catheter in. I kind of felt like this is too easy. I'm not really in labor. Like it was just kind of like a very weird situation for me. I just felt like, okay, I'm ready to do like hard work. I'm ready to like really see things progress. So in the morning of August 8th, they said to us, you know, you're progressing, but you're progressing very slowly. If you would like, we can go ahead and break your waters. And actually at that point too, my midwife was off duty at 8 o'clock that morning. So I knew like this stinks, like it's probably, I'm not gonna deliver with her. I'm gonna deliver with a different OB that I haven't been meeting with. So that was kind of a bummer. I was upset about it, but I met the new OB and she was awesome. She was great. She really stood behind us in our birth plan. At about 9:45 on August 8th, we said, let's go ahead and have you break my waters and see if that helps things out. Because basically they were just saying there's fluid that's kind of protecting the baby's head from going down, you know, and putting pressure to dilate you further and, you know, help these contractions progress quicker. So I said, let's do it. Like, we've been here a long time. I'm ready to do some hard work. Let's see if this helps out the situation. Let's go for it. So they broke my waters, which that is an interesting experience. Basically, I was laying back and they went ahead and broke the water, and it was just like hot pee everywhere, like all over me. I'm like, oh, this is interesting. Definitely it was uncomfortable for them to do that. Yeah, things got very intense for me. The pressure waves were extremely intense within, I mean, to me it felt like within like 30 seconds of them breaking my waters. I immediately had to stand up from laying on my back because that was really uncomfortable for me. So I immediately stood up. I was holding the railing of the hospital bed. Then they raised the bed for me and I leaned over the bed and kind of, you know, swayed my hips around, trying to make it through each pressure wave, which they started to get very close together, very intense. And I want to say I was really only standing next to the bed for a handful of minutes before I said to my nurse, I want to get in the water. They had jetted tubs at this birth center, and I said, I need to get in the tub. I need to get in the water and see if that helps, because this is very intense. So we went ahead and they had to get the water ready, which it kind of stinks. By the time you're ready to get in the tub, then they're like, oh yeah, give us a few minutes. We got to get everything ready. So you're kind of like, dang it, I just want to like jump in the water. But yeah, sorry, I need to feed him real quick. So they got the water ready for me, and then it was basically just like me throwing off my clothes. I ran into the bathroom and got into the jetted tub. I think I was kind of expecting to get in and be like, oh, this is amazing, and wow, it helps so much, and I have no pain or discomfort whatsoever. Like, I don't know, I just have watched a lot of water births, and women just make it look like you get in and it's like magical water. The contractions were extremely close together to the point where I barely had, but I mean, it felt like maybe it was a minute, but it was the quickest minute of my life to recover from each one. So I was in the tub and I started to feel like I have to poop. Okay, so this is where the story gets, it could be TMI for some people. I started feeling like I have to poop, right? So it's kind of like that feeling of bearing down when you poop, that it just comes, you know, and you just, this is, my body's taking over, I have to do this. So I said to the midwife, you know, I feel like I have to poop. And she said, okay, that's okay. So I told her I was feeling this way. And then a few minutes later, I actually started, my body had to make this like grunting noise. So I'm starting to make this noise, and my nurse comes back in and says, wow, it sounds to me like you are pushing. I need to go ahead and check you. It is intense. It is so intense that like I am not wanting anyone to even touch me. Like I'm just in the tub, holding onto the tub railing, focused. And I basically, after she suggests a few times that she needs to give me a vaginal exam to see how far dilated I am, I say no. I tell her, no, please don't check me. And I say it pretty firmly because I'm in a lot of discomfort. So she says, okay, she leaves the room. I find out later that she had left the room to go call the OB and say, hey, like, I think your patient is getting close. Like, you should probably come over here. And the OB is like, oh, she probably has a little more time. Like, you're okay. So at that point, I really started grunting pretty regularly, pretty consistently with every pressure wave, with every contraction. So finally she came in and she said, we need to get you out of this tub because at this hospital you're allowed to labor in the water, but you're not allowed to actually deliver. So she just went ahead and drained the water. She drained it, and then I was just in an empty tub, kind of cold, but kind of not because I was working pretty hard. And finally I was like, okay, I'm gonna get out. So I had a kind of break, and I knew in my head like, okay, I need to get up and get out of this tub. So I got out of the tub, and I put my arms on Ian's shoulders and my head kind of, you know, pressed into his chest through each pressure wave. And at that point, my nurse is in there and she's hearing me grunt and she's going, we need to get you like in the other room. We need to get you on the bed. I need to check you, you know. And basically I tell her at that moment, I'm about to poop. Like I feel it. I'm about to poop. She goes, yep, you just pooped. It's okay. She literally caught the poop in her hand, threw it in the toilet behind her, flushed the toilet, and that was that. Luckily, there was no like crazy weird situation. I didn't have to see it. I was turned the other way, but I think poor Ian had to see, you know, this nurse catch my poop in her hand. But after that, I felt fine. So she said, let's go in the other room. I kind of fought that for a minute because I was like, you already got me out of the tub. Now you want me to go in the other room and lay on the bed? No way. So finally I went in the other room and I said, I can't lay down. Like, I can't lay down. And then basically the nurse said, okay, well, we can put the bed so that way you can be on all fours. So they kind of leaned the head portion of the bed up so that way I could put my arms over it and kind of be on all fours. And at that point, I remember thinking to myself, this is it. I'm pushing now, or I'm gonna start pushing. And I don't know, it's like all these women you hear about say, oh, I was pushing for 5 hours. I was pushing for 10 hours. And so in my head, I was very clearly thinking, holy crap, I could have 5 more hours of this. And this is really intense. And I don't think I can do that. So I started asking the nurse, and the doctor was there. I said, what position can I get in to make this easier? What can I do to help this? I need to have this baby. I was definitely starting to panic. They just said, you can be in that position if that's what's comfortable to you. The doctor was there at that point. They checked me and said I was fully dilated, fully effaced. The baby was, you know, right there. I was still feeling that like grunting, like I need to grunt, I need to poop. That's the only way I can kind of describe what that feels like. And then at that point, I'm not facing the doctor or the nurses or Ian or anybody. I am just holding onto the bed, and the doctor says to me, okay, that feeling that you have of a tightening or a contracting or the push urge, she said, I want you to push into that. I want you to fully just lean into that and go for it. And that was really scary for me to hear. Like, I heard that and I knew what I needed to do, but I also had this moment of, oh my gosh, like, this is real. Like, up until that point, it had been just very, it almost sounds bad to say easy, but it hadn't been this terrible thing that I had thought it would be. I pushed, and you basically feel like you're not making any progress. Like, you are just, you feel this urge and you push into it, and then you're like, okay, I pushed into it. I pushed into that feeling twice, and they said, he's right there, or the baby's right there, you know? So I think the second or the third one, I really just put my heart and soul into pushing. And then his head came out. And at that point I was like, oh my gosh, like, I don't even know how to describe, it just felt so good to have his head out, because it was just like, this pressure is off me. His head was out. At that point, the doctor told me to stop pushing. I didn't know why. They didn't say anything to me at all. They just said, stop pushing, stop pushing. And it's like, once you start, and once his head was out, it was like, I just wanted to push. I just wanted to like get him out. I don't know how else to say it. I was just like, get him out now, you know? So I just really wanted to get him out. They said stop pushing. It was probably one of the longest minutes of my life not pushing. And then they said, okay, go for it. At that point, when they had stopped me from pushing him, I didn't know this, but Sid's cord was wrapped around his neck. So they cut it off, actually. They pulled it and cut it off. And then they said, go for it. And I did one more big push, and his whole body came out with a splash. I felt a splash. I splashed the OB, you know, all that stuff. They took him immediately to just make sure that he was breathing okay, that everything with him was fine since the cord was wrapped around his neck. I slowly turned around with the help of the nurse. There was a ton of fluid everywhere, which I don't know if that's TMI or people want to know that, but there was just fluid everywhere. And there was a bunch of nurses in there. They're all cleaning it up for me. And then I said, where's my baby? And they said, right here. And they said, it's a boy. And he was crying. They handed him to me. I put him on my chest, and I had a baby, and I did it. And from the time they broke my water to the time he was in my arms was an hour. I think more than just the elation of having everything done was like looking at him and going, oh my goodness, like there actually was a baby in there. Like when you're pregnant, you know, oh, there's a baby in there. But then when the baby comes out, you're like, there was actually a baby in there. And I just pushed that baby out. Like, it was the most surreal experience of my life. So surreal. And I just remember looking at Ian going, oh my gosh, we just had a baby. I delivered the placenta, and that was almost, I felt like that was almost more painful than giving birth. And then they have to basically like check you to make sure there's no, remaining pieces of the placenta. The OB did tell me that I had a 1st-degree tear, which is really common. And she said that she basically attributed that to my positioning on the bed of being on all fours. So then the placenta was delivered. I got to look at it. I got to take it home. Very cool. I wanted to do placenta encapsulation, but being new to the area and just with everything kind of surrounding moving to Bend and finding a new healthcare provider, getting settled in our house, I never found someone to do encapsulation for me, and I didn't have the stuff here to do it myself, or really the mental capacity to do that on top of everything else I was doing. So my placenta's still in my freezer. That's his birth story. He's here. He's amazing. He's a little cuddle bug. Just feeling really blessed that even though my birth didn't start how I wanted, you know, it was induced and I did have Pitocin and I didn't want that. I still feel, you know, very empowered by my experience and very happy with the whole birth experience. I stayed in the hospital a full 2 days because I wanted to really get lactation support. I wanted to get the free room service because, hell, that is nice. Thanks for watching. Thanks for wanting to hear our story. And I would say it's not the easiest thing in the world to do, but it's the most rewarding thing in the world to do is give birth. And however you and your family decide to do that, whether you decide to be induced, whether you decide, you know, to get pain medication, whether you decide to have a C-section, I think that you need to do what's right for you and for your family. This is what our family did and what worked for us and what happened with us. Birth is an amazing thing. And I think that our culture has framed it in a way that makes us fear it. Us as women fear birth, and I don't think that we should, because it's a natural part of life. It's something that our bodies were created to do. I definitely didn't always feel this way. I used to hear about birth and be queasy and uncomfortable and scared. Really, really scared. I would say out of the last 2 months, birth to this point, one of the easier things has been the labor and the delivery. I was not prepared for other things that have been a lot harder for me personally. So that's our birth story. That's Sidney's birthday story. Born August 8th, 2016, 7 pounds, 10 ounces, 20¼ inches long, born at 10:45 a.m., an hour after they broke his mama's waters. And he is just a little angel. Little angel. If you have any questions about things maybe that I didn't answer or talk about, put them in the comments below. But I gotta go because Sidney just peed on my hand. So, yeah. Bye, guys.